What is up, everybody? We have 10 minutes to talk with the Jarrod Erdody from Next Buck Outdoors. At least that's where I predominantly know you from, Jarrod. I think we've known each other for, gosh, probably 10 years.
Been at least 10, right? Yeah.
So first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
Which is like odd because I just feel like I know you so well.
Yeah, you feel like you know someone for years and then you finally see their face.
Now your perception has been totally changed.
Exactly. Topic of the day: summer deer scouting and strategies for fall. Now, actually, that's why we caught you today, Jarrod, because you are coming off of doing just that thing.
Yeah, exactly. I had a window this weekend. We had a get together with Whitetail Addictions. Our staff met up in eastern Iowa at Andre's place, and it's coincidentally within a couple hours of where I hunt in western Wisconsin. So wanted to take some time on my way back from that to get a little bit of, call it scouting, but getting ready to scout, I suppose, get some cameras out. Mm-hmm. And my body's hurting today because I was doing a bunch of chainsaw work. We're just helping Lee on the farm and cutting firewood. So
deer scouting sounds a little bit more fun than chainsaw work. And I should say that because I do love running a chainsaw.
Yeah,
maybe aside from the ticks and the hot weather. So.
Okay, hard pass.
Yeah, it was about 90 degrees this weekend for
it's brutal.
So.
Yeah. So I got up this morning early and set some cameras before I left town. And that's the main thing right now. In Lee's area, there's not a lot of beans this year. There's a lot of standing corn. The neighbors have some beans, though, so I was looking over some aerials last night and basically finding the closest beans to his farm because I do still think there's going to be some bedding on his farm getting to and from beans. So that was kind of my focus right now. Found some big beds in some grassy swales it'd be southeast of some of the neighbors' beans. So I got a camera on that. I'm kind of going to watch that spot. And what I'm kind of focusing on are some basically north-facing cameras because the tall weeds this time of year in this heat can really be more sensitive to cameras. So I wanted to set them up facing north. And in this case, you got a lot of, just standing corn and a lack of trees and where I was at. So I pounded some fence posts and some skinnier sticks and got some cameras a little elevated over those tall weeds. It's going to be better for false triggers, fewer false triggerings, and I think all of us have had those 500 photos or more midday.
Fill up a trail camera card in about 2 days. You go back a month later.
Exactly.
Just happened to me.
Get there in September and have about 8,000 pictures. And very few deer, so try to avoid that.
It takes you from about level 12 to about level 0. When you're like, oh my gosh, it's loaded, the deer are moving through here. Like, no, that's a branch actually. And it's the same branch.
Exactly.
I know, right? Yeah.
So how much value do you put into those summer trail camera photos? And I guess, so we're in the late part of July right now. I would imagine whatever is showing up on those cameras is going to be really consistent for the next month and a half-ish. How much value are you putting on that? And then how do you adapt as you get into that September shift?
Yeah, it's a good question. In Wisconsin, the season opens earlier, so there can be some value to it. But I really anticipate it's not for hunting spots. It's really for inventory's sake. I can't throw out mineral. I can't throw out bait. I don't want to get into some thicker areas that I would do some mock scrapes just yet. I could potentially do that if it was raining and I could get in there a little less intrusive. But with tall weeds and just thick foliage everywhere and corn, you're just laying scent and sweat everywhere. So I try to stick to the perimeters, and my goal was really to just get some inventory, get eyes on, via the cameras, hopefully get eyes on what bucks we have around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're doing that primarily in bedding areas right now? Are you doing a...
No, that particular spot wasn't, that was a bit of a bedding area, but I almost, this time of year, I kind of look at the corn as a bedding area. So you've got a lot of cover, and I'm looking at the topography of those cornfields adjacent to the bean fields, thinking, that's going to make sense. We got north-facing standing corn adjacent to beans to the north, and I think they're very likely to be bedding in the corn coming in and out.
Sure.
So I was scouting the edges of those. See a lot of just crop damage, a lot of them eating corn. They're eating the tassels off of the newly forming corn. And, so that kind of cues you in on that. The topography, that level, it's the same whether it's a cornfield or the woods. Just kind of bedding a little bit down from those tops.
Right.
Just kind of figure where the prevailing winds are. And then because it's so thick, you're just looking at field edges, basically between fence rows and standing corn. There's 2 tracks a lot of times, either for the farmer or, in this case, the landowner. So the deer will walk up and down those trails this time of year a lot more casually than they would in another couple months.
Yeah.
So that's a window for doing that. I literally set a couple cameras right in between corn stalks, on fence posts. So I better not keep them there real long, because if the farmer cuts the corn, he's going to cut my cameras. So it's not intended to be something very long.
Sure.
Yeah. When you're talking about those fence posts, those are posts that you're actually pounding in then, because you're like, oh, there's not like a great tree to hang the camera on, or maybe the foliage around a tree that you could hang it on. It's just too thick, so you're getting like a cleaner picture with less false triggers and positioning the camera, I guess, exactly where you want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So out of the 5 I hung this morning, 1 of them was on an apple tree that kind of stuck out over weeds, and I was able to put one of my brackets on it and aim it right. But the others were all on fence posts that were, I tried to get them up about 6 foot or so, about head high, so they're above grass.
Yeah, you brought something up there, talking about like north slopes versus southern slopes that I wanted to kind of go back to. Do you find, so in the whitetail world, obviously you get into October, November, you're primarily looking at those southern slopes because they warm up a little bit better. In the summer, though, do you use the reverse of that? Do you kind of target those northern slopes at all because they are cooler?
Yeah. That makes more sense. They're going to be more shaded, a little cooler. The beds certainly showed that today.
Yeah.
October, November, you got a transition. They may be southern slopes, they may be northern slopes, or east-west. It's really more about the prevailing winds that time of the year.
Sure.
If it's super warm, then they might be northern side, but you're basically assessing it based on the prevailing winds come fall.
Okay. Cool.
So, we are literally in the heat of summer right now, and we're talking about, Lee's Place, which is a place you're familiar with. You've hunted it before. You know the lay of the land. Maybe contrast that with something where you're like, oh man, I dropped a pin on this piece of public, or this, this piece of private that I just got permission on, but I really haven't set foot in there. How does that strategy shift from, like, I know I can be a little bit more gentle with it, and I'm just taking inventory, and it doesn't really matter maybe like what time of day that you're getting those pictures or that kind of feedback? What about that place that you're going into the first time, and the first look you're going to get at it is like now?
Yeah. A lot of it's the same, and yet because you're not familiar with it, you got to approach it a little different because it's brand new. So I have a tag in Iowa this year, and I have permission on a farm I've never stepped foot on yet. So probably in a couple weeks, I guess early August, I'm planning on to get out there for the first time. And being brand new to it would change my approach. Of course, I might set some stuff then for fall, but really the goal is inventory.
Still, okay.
The goal is still inventory. The farm is in beans, so I do know that. But there's CRP, there's beans, and then of course timber. So my approach to a weekend like that would be not that I can plan so much based on weather. If I was local, I would plan more around rain and getting in there, and I'd probably be more invasive if I was right before rain.
Yep.
If I get out there in that particular weekend and it's raining or about to rain or something, I will probably dive right in on everything and just learn as much as I can. But that said, it depends on how thick things are.
Sure.
Thorns are, I don't want to lose too much blood. So,
right.
The goal is really to get inventory. So I may Probably just key on beans, scouting the edge of beans in relation to the topography on the farm, and get some cameras out on some edges of fields where they're going to be. Iowa does allow you to throw bait out, so you can, feed in the summer and get inventory that way. So I might throw something out and help me find what's around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd plan, I guess depending on how invasive I was or what the weather's doing, I might plan on leaving part of it alone so I can glass in the evening.
Yeah.
Because those beans are a lot more glassable than standing corn.
Right.
Right.
So it's really an outside-in approach. Get to know the property, what my access is going to be, where you're going to be going in and out, or just kind of. I'll do a lot more studying of the aerials before I get out there too, and just kind of figure, all right, find your bedding areas first and foremost. And the other super valuable information is talking to people that have hunted it in the past, or the landowner, and just start picking his brain more. That's going to help me figure out where to put some cameras.
Okay.
So yeah, and then depending on how dry it's been, how wet it's been, you're going to be able to see tracks in those beans, and maybe locate bachelor group tracks, because bucks will be together. You see large tracks together, then that can clue you in on which points have the bucks coming off of them versus the does. The does will tend to keep their fawns separate. Mature dominant does will kick bucks away, so they tend to be fairly isolated in the summertime. Like back in Michigan now, I've got a doe and a couple fawns behind my house, and she keeps other deer away, while they're raising their fawns. So it's not uncommon that they're pretty separated. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about, beans, which is like such an awesome summer food source / you can definitely key in on it early fall when your seasons start a little bit earlier. But if I remember correctly, like a state like Iowa, that season's cranking up in October sometime.
October 1, yeah.
Which by then, those
Right.
beans are probably pretty much off completely.
Yeah, especially Iowa, they tend to get planted earlier.
Yep.
So I don't anticipate, like Wisconsin, a mid-September hunt where you can really maybe take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
This landowner, my understanding is he may have a couple food plots there. I don't know what they're made of, so I'm going to figure out if it's worth maybe an early October sit. Because there's a lot of strategies that come into October, but beans may or may not be one of them in that case.
Mm-hmm. It's cool to see like how important they are as part of your strategy, even though that's not necessarily a food source that you're going to key on, later on down the road. I did want to, for a person who is maybe less familiar or just getting into deer hunting, what's the why behind you're like, oh man, it's about to rain or it is raining, that makes you feel like, yep, I can be more aggressive and push in on something I want to take a look at?
Yeah, it's just a free pass to go learn the woods and not stink it all up, because your scent's getting washed out almost as soon as you're in there. So you may bump deer. This time of year, it's not generally as big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime you're trying to target mature bucks and find where they're at, the less invasive you can be, the better. And to the point of leaving a lot of scent versus leaving no scent, I'd rather leave no scent. So
Right.
I tend to pick and choose when I'm invasive, and if it's around a rainstorm, that's best. Checking cameras, same way. You're always making a disturbance when you get in and check cameras, especially when there's a lot of foliage and tall grass and standing corn, and you're just sweating. And so if you can time it around rain, you get more free passes to do that.
Not too many free passes this summer.
No,
I know, right?
no, not at all.
Yeah, it's been a little better in Michigan lately, but
Yeah.
been hot and dry.
Yep.
Very cool, very cool. I don't know. I think that about does it for summertime scouting strategies for me, Eric. Did you have any other questions for Jarrod? Or?
No, I think we actually transitioned perfectly into talking October tactics. And if you're listening to this right now in August, tune in a few months where we'll have Jarrod on again to talk October tactics.
Super pumped. Everybody, thank you for listening. Hopefully you learned something. I know I do every time I talk to Jarrod. Next Buck Outdoors, tons of great information there. Check that out as well. And, yeah, I mean, definitely some really, really good information in the videos that you guys produce. And maybe we'll even talk about those a little bit here on the next one. Bye, everybody.